On this week's episode of the QC Step Podcast, I'm going to answer the question, what should you do if your hours are getting cut with your job? I'm going to give you a few suggestions on what to ask when an interviewer asks if you have any questions during that interview, and I will share this week's job leads. It's the week of January 28th through the 31st, and this is the QC Step Podcast. Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of the QC Step Podcast. I'm Corey Finneran, and you can connect with QC Step through your social networking. We are on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Go to qcstep.com/Facebook, and we are at QC Step on Twitter and Instagram. And last week, I shared an article on our Facebook and Twitter, and that article was entitled 7 Essential Questions to Ask in an Interview. And if you're not prepared for the interviewer to ask, do you have any questions for me in that interview, then that can be a pretty traumatic situation. So I would like to give you a few questions that you can ask when you're faced with this in an interview. It could be a job-specific question, and an example of that would be, what is the typical day for someone in the position that I'm applying for? Or you could ask a more long-term question, and an example of this would be, how would you describe an employee that is successful in this position? And if you ask a question like this, you'll gain information about the job that you're applying for, and you will learn what it takes to become successful if you're offered the job. But it also shows the interviewer that you are ambitious, and it shows the interviewer that you have success on your mind and that you're a long-term thinker. And you're not just focused on getting that job, but you're envisioning success, and you want to know what it takes to achieve that success. So there's all sorts of things that you can ask when given the opportunity in an interview. Most high school students applying for entry-level positions, they probably ask about the dress code or topics like that. But I think if you take your question to the next level, it can really set you apart from the competition, and it can give you a better chance of landing that job. I have a student-submitted question to answer this week, and I think that these questions are great. I enjoy hearing about the aspects of employment that you're unsure about and that you want more information on, and this is a great opportunity for me to give you some information, and chances are that there's other students that could benefit from the discussion too. So send in your questions on employment, whether it's questions about how to handle aspects of interviews or if it's on the job type of stuff. I would like to use this time to help you through whatever employment issue you're facing. And you can send them to me on Facebook, you can tweet them to me, or you can email me, info@qcstep.com. And this week's question comes from Tyler. And Tyler asks, what should you do if your hours are getting cut with your job? That's a great question, Tyler, and it's something that I would guess a lot of you that are working are probably facing right now. Since we came back from winter break, I've been talking about business slowing down, and this is the first week that we're really going to see that with the job leads. Businesses aren't hiring, and everyone's hours are getting cut. And when the weather is miserable, like it was earlier this week, people just don't want to get out. And when there's fewer people coming through the doors of businesses, there's fewer dollars coming through those doors. And when there's fewer dollars coming through those doors, then that's less money that employers have to spend on their labor or their workers. So what should you do if your hours are getting cut? Number 1, be at work on time every day that you're scheduled. When hours are hard to come by, you don't want to get yourself pushed down the list by not being reliable. If you're not reliable, the employer or the person that writes the schedules will probably give someone else priority over you. Number 2, work extra shifts. You can show your willingness to work by working extra shifts. And whether it's an employee that asks you to work for them, or if it's a supervisor that calls you and asks you to come in and work, if you say yes whenever you're asked to work an extra shift, just like being at work on time, that shows that you're reliable. Your employer and your supervisors will know that they can count on you. Tell your employer, the scheduler, and the supervisors that you would like to work more hours and that you would be happy to work extra shifts. Being proactive will get you further than just sitting around and waiting for that phone to ring. Number 3, work hard. When business is slow, employers are looking for the most efficient ways to keep their businesses running. If there aren't that many hours to go around, then they're going to give those hours to the most efficient workers. They aren't going to give hours to somebody that messes around on the job and just doesn't work hard. So if you want to give yourself the best chance you can of receiving the limited hours that there are to go around, take your work seriously and be as productive of an employee as you can. This really just all comes down to value. When hours are limited, the employer will give the hours to the most valuable employees. So the key is to make yourself valuable. This is my 9th school year working with the STEP program, and I've seen quite a few students get discouraged from their hours getting cut, and I've seen quite a few students actually frustrated enough to quit their jobs. And first off, let me say that if you're working and you feel like you're not getting enough hours, it doesn't make much sense to quit your job unless you have another job lined up. Even if you're only getting 1 shift a week, that's more than 0, which is what you'll have if you quit your job before you have another one lined up. I know that it can be a frustrating situation, but while business slowing down is out of your control, there are some things that factor into the hours that you receive that are in your control. And if you're at work every day on time that you're scheduled, if you tell the employer, the scheduler, and the supervisors that you would like to work extra shifts, and you work hard when you're scheduled, you will give yourself a better chance of getting more hours.
I'm waking up to ash and dust. I wipe my brow and I sweat my rust.
I post job leads to QCStep.com on Monday mornings, and then I share those out through our Facebook, our Twitter, and our Instagram. And I just talked about hours decreasing this time of year because business has slowed down, and we can definitely see that in the job leads this week, or I should say job lead this week. That's right, there's 1 job lead. The Kmart in Rock Island is looking for cashiers, and there are some job leads for the graduates that finish school after the first semester, and these job leads require a high school diploma or a GED. That's Petco in Moline is hiring cashiers. Best Buy in Moline is looking for customer service associates and cashiers. Coca-Cola is hiring order builders/loaders. Lowe's in Moline is hiring seasonal lawn and garden workers, and Lids in Moline is hiring sales associates. And I do give those leads every week for graduates because there are some students that graduated that still watch the podcast, especially this time of year, students that graduated at this semester. So these leads that I just gave are more geared towards them. But like I said, the Kmart in Rock Island is hiring. And I should also say that there's still the fast food restaurants that are hiring. I don't get those leads all the time. And so you can pretty much assume that most fast food restaurants are hiring all the time. And so check with those businesses, see if they're hiring. They may be accepting applications. So you can still get applications in and then follow up with them. So all of the leads that I gave this week have online applications, and you can get to those by going to QCStep.com, and if you look under the blog post Job Leads January 27th, 2014, you'll see them there. And if you need any help with these applications, you can email me, info@QCStep.com. So thank you to Tyler for giving us a topic to discuss this weekend. And if you have a question that you would like answered on the podcast, you can send those to me through Facebook, you can tweet them at me, or you can email me, info@qcstep.com. So thank you for watching and listening, and I will be back next week with another episode of the QC Step Podcast.